A little beggar woman interrupted the millionaire's wedding and shouted, "Don't marry her or you won't survive." After ignoring the beggar woman, the millionaire was chilled by what his wife was capable of doing on their honeymoon. The Whitmore mansion glistened under the Sunday morning sun, its French windows reflecting the golden light that bathed the impeccably tended garden. Anna, a 7-year-old girl with deep brown eyes and wavy black hair framing her round face, nervously adjusted the ribbon on the sky-blue dress her father had insisted she wear for the special occasion. Michael, her 45-year-old father with slightly graying temples, paced back and forth in the living room, obsessively checking if every object was in its proper place. "Daddy, why are you so nervous?" "It's just another visit," Anna asked, watching her father's trembling hands straighten the sofa cushions for the 3rd time. "My little one," he replied, stroking his daughter's hair. "Today you're going to meet someone who will bring a lot of happiness back into our family." The sound of the doorbell made Michael practically jump, and Anna noticed how he quickly checked his appearance in the hallway mirror before heading for the door. The girl remained a few steps behind, her small hands clutching the hem of her dress with anxiety. When the door opened, it was as if a gust of French perfume invaded the environment. Catherine was the personification of elegance, tall, slender, with perfectly styled blonde hair in a sophisticated bun and wearing a red dress that seemed to have been tailored just for her. Her green eyes, accentuated by impeccable makeup, scanned the room before settling on Anna. "Michael, darling, you didn't tell me your daughter was so adorable." Her melodious voice echoed through the room as she gracefully approached the girl. "Our little princess is the most precious thing I have in my life," said Michael, his face lit up by a smile Anna hadn't seen since her mother's death. Breakfast had been carefully prepared by the housekeeper, who had gone to great lengths to present various cakes, fruits and breads on the dining room table. Catherine sat with studied elegance, her perfectly manicured nails tapping softly on the porcelain cup. "So, dear Anna," she began, her smile as bright as pearls, "your father told me you love princess stories. Maybe we can read some together later," the stepmother said, and the girl smiled shyly, feeling a comforting warmth in her chest. "Do you know the story of Cinderella?" "It's my favorite," Anna replied, receiving an enigmatic look from Catherine in return. "So of course I know it. It's one of my favorites too," Catherine responded. Throughout the meal, Catherine kept up an animated conversation, making Michael laugh as Anna hadn't seen him do in a long time. The girl watched in fascination as the woman managed to keep everyone around her entertained with her stories about travels and experiences in different countries. "Daddy seems so happy," Anna thought, watching her father lean toward Catherine, drinking in every word she spoke. Maybe she really can help us be a family again. After breakfast, Michael had to take an important work call and retired to his office. It was at that moment that Anna noticed a sudden change in the environment. Catherine's warm smile transformed into something different, something that made the girl's spine freeze. Without warning, the elegant woman stood up and, with a sudden motion, pushed Anna's plate away. "Listen up, you little fat girl," she whispered, leaning over the table in a threatening manner. "Don't think I didn't notice how you devoured that cake. Just like your dead mother, isn't that right? Well, know that things are going to change around here." The change in Catherine's behavior was so abrupt that Anna barely had time to process what was happening. With precise movements, the woman began to clear the plates from the table, throwing away any remaining food. But I hadn't finished yet," Anna mumbled, her voice trembling. Catherine turned to her with a cruel smile. "Did you really think I'd let you keep stuffing yourself like a little pig? Your mother may have allowed that, but now the rules are different." The sound of Michael's approaching footsteps made Catherine instantly reassume her sweet mask. "Oh dear, don't worry about helping clean up," she said in a loud, melodious voice when Michael entered the kitchen. "You're such a helpful child." Anna remained paralyzed in her chair, looking at her father, who smiled proudly, completely oblivious to what had just happened. Later that day, as Michael showed Catherine the mansion's gardens, Anna watched them through her bedroom window. Her stomach growled with hunger, but the fear of going downstairs and encountering Catherine alone was greater. "Why does she hate me?" the girl thought, a solitary tear rolling down her face. "Mom, I wish you were here so much." Night was falling when Anna decided to go downstairs for a drink of water. In the hallway leading to the kitchen, hushed voices caught her attention. Hidden behind a column, she saw Catherine tampering with something on the kitchen counter. To her horror, the girl realized they were the pills her father took every night. Everything must be perfect, Catherine muttered to herself, switching pills between different bottles. Very soon, very soon. Michael appeared in the kitchen, smiling when he saw Catherine. "Already setting out my pills, darling? You're an angel." Catherine smiled sweetly, handing him the tablets and a glass of water. "Just taking care of you, my love. After all, we need to make sure you stay strong and healthy for our future together." Anna watched powerless as her father swallowed the pills that Catherine had tampered with. The rest of the night unfolded like a slow-motion nightmare for Anna. Catherine continued her flawless performance in front of Michael, but whenever he was distracted, she would shoot icy glares in the girl's direction. "You're just like your mother," she whispered as she passed Anna in the hallway. "And you know what happened to her, don't you?" Lying in her bed that night, Anna couldn't sleep. The day's events replayed in her mind like a horror movie. The sound of Catherine's laughter echoed in her ears, mingling with the noise of the pills being swapped. "I need to tell Daddy," she thought, clutching her teddy bear to her chest. "But will he believe me?" The first rays of sunlight were beginning to appear when Anna finally managed to fall asleep, her last tears drying on the pillow. In her restless dreams, she saw her mother smiling and waving from afar, but every time she tried to reach her, Catherine appeared, her perfect smile twisting into a cruel expression. "You're mine now, little one," Catherine's voice said in her mind, "and no one can save you." The following morning, as she prepared for breakfast, Anna heard Michael and Catherine conversing in the hallway. "She'll get used to the idea, dear," Catherine said in her syrupy voice. "Children always take a little while to accept changes." Michael sighed heavily. "I just want us to be a happy family again." Anna felt her heart tighten as she heard Catherine's response. "Oh, don't worry, my love, I'll take care of everything. Absolutely everything." That first morning marked the beginning of a new reality for Anna. As she watched Catherine move about the house, as if she had always belonged there, the girl felt a growing fear settle in her chest. Her only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. "Mum," she whispered to herself, looking at her mother's portrait that still hung on the living room wall, "please protect me. I think I'm going to need your help a lot now." The kitchen clock read 2 in the morning when Anna, barefoot and trembling, silently descended the stairs. Her tiny feet carefully avoided every step that could creak, while her stomach ached with hunger after another day without proper meals. The darkness of the house was broken only by the faint moonlight streaming through the windows, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. For days, Catherine had been strictly controlling her portions, allowing only a few spoonfuls of food at each meal. "If this continues, I'll faint at school tomorrow," Anna thought, feeling her legs weaken. "I need to find something to eat. Anything will do." The kitchen, once a place of comfort and happy memories with her mother, now seemed like a forbidden and frightening territory. Anna moved like a little ghost between the cabinets, her trembling fingers touching the handles with extreme caution. The sound of her own breathing seemed deafening in the night silence. She opened the first cabinet and found only plates and cups. "Catherine must have hidden all the food," she whispered to herself, her voice thick with frustration. "She always thinks of everything, always thinks of everything." With a determination born of desperation, Anna continued her search. Every drawer, every cabinet door was a new hope, soon followed by disappointment. Finally, high on a shelf, she spotted a box of cookies. As quietly as possible, she dragged a chair over, trying to reach the object of her desire. Her fingers barely touched the edge of the box when a noise made her freeze. "Looking for something, little rat?" Catherine's voice cut through the silence like a razor. "Or should I say, little thief?" The fright made Anna lose her balance. The chair swayed precariously, and she fell to the floor with a dull thud, while the box of cookies tumbled down, spilling its contents all over the kitchen floor. Catherine remained standing at the door, her silk robe fluttering slightly with the night breeze coming through the window. Her green eyes shone with cruel satisfaction in the dim light. "So this is how you thank me for all my generosity?" she asked, approaching with slow, deliberate steps. "By making a mess of my immaculate kitchen in the middle of the night?" Anna tried to get up, but her legs were shaking too much. Broken cookies surrounded her small body like evidence of a crime. Tears began streaming down her face, when she saw Catherine taking something out of the pocket of her robe, an old, rusted key. "Do you know what this is, dear?" Catherine asked, dangling the key in front of the girl's wide eyes. "It's the key to your new special room." With a quick motion, Catherine grabbed Anna's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the child's soft skin. She dragged her through the dark corridors of the house, descending a staircase Anna had never noticed before. The air grew colder and damper with each step they took. "Please, Mrs. Catherine, I'm sorry," Anna pleaded, her voice trembling. "I was just so hungry." The response came in the form of a low, cruel laugh. "Hungry? You don't know what hunger is yet, my dear, but you'll learn." The basement was a large, dark space with only a small barred window near the ceiling. Old boxes and dust-covered furniture draped in sheets cast threatening shadows on the stone walls. Catherine shoved Anna inside with force, making her stumble and fall onto the cold floor. "This is where naughty children stay until they learn to behave," she said, her voice now laced with false sweetness. "I hope you learn your lesson quickly." The sound of the heavy wooden door closing echoed through the basement like a final sentence. Anna ran to it, pounding her tiny fists against the rough surface. "Please, don't leave me here," she cried, panic taking over her voice. "It's dark, there are rats." From the other side she could hear Catherine laughing. "Rats? Well, I thought you liked them since you act like one." The hours dragged in the darkness, each minute seeming an eternity. Anna huddled in a corner, hugging her knees to her chest to try to keep warm. The cold of the basement pierced her bones, and the strange sounds coming from the shadows made her tremble with fear. "Mommy," she whispered repeatedly like a mantra. "Please help me, please make it stop." The sound of footsteps upstairs made Anna raise her head. It was morning. She could see from the faint light coming through the barred window. Voices began echoing through the ceiling. Her father had woken up. "Michael, darling." Catherine's voice was heavy with concern. "I can't find Anna anywhere. I've looked all over the house." Pressing her ear against the wall, Anna could hear the unfolding conversation above. "What do you mean she's nowhere?" Her father's voice sounded alarmed. "She must be hiding somewhere, playing." Catherine sobbed theatrically. "Oh, Michael, what if she ran away? I've been so patient trying to be a good mother to her, but sometimes I feel like she hates me." Anna's heart raced as she listened to her father's hurried footsteps around the house, calling her name. Gathering all her courage, she began to scream, "Dad, Dad, I'm down here!" But the basement was too deep, and her words seemed to be swallowed by the thick stone walls. Catherine's voice continued her performance above. "I'll call the police, darling. A child alone on the streets can be very dangerous." Tears silently streamed down Anna's face as she listened to Catherine manipulate her father with lies. Her stomach ached with hunger, and the cold of the basement seemed to penetrate her bones. "Why does she hate me so much?" she thought, resting her head on her knees. "What did I do wrong?" In the darkness of the basement, Anna began to understand that her life had changed forever. The sound of the worried voices above, her father desperate and Catherine feigning distress, was like a macabre symphony marking the beginning of her nightmare. "She's going to starve me down here," Anna thought, feeling a wave of panic take over her body. "And Dad will never know the truth." Time seemed to stand still in that dark, cold place. Anna could hear the movement of the house above, doors slamming, phones ringing, people coming and going. Catherine had turned her disappearance into a perfect spectacle. "We have to find her, Michael." Her tearful voice echoed through the ceiling. "Our little princess must be so scared." Like a small caged animal, Anna moved around the basement, searching for a way out. Her small hands felt along the damp walls, her eyes trying to adjust to the suffocating darkness. Every sound, every shadow made her jump. "If I can get out of here," she muttered to herself, her voice trembling, "no one will ever believe Catherine again. I'll tell Dad everything." The creak of the basement door made Anna shrink further into her corner. The light coming from the stairs revealed Catherine's elegant silhouette, descending the steps with a triumphant expression on her face. "Thank God! I found her, Michael!" she shouted upwards, her melodious voice laced with false relief. "She was down here the whole time, poor thing. Come quick!" Her heels echoed on the stone floor as she approached Anna. Lowering her voice to a threatening whisper, she added, "Now let's see who your father believes, you little brat." The sound of Michael's hurried footsteps coming down the stairs filled the space. Seeing his daughter huddled in the corner, he ran to her. his face a mixture of relief and concern. "Dear God, Anna, what are you doing down here? We were all so worried." Before Catherine could interfere, Anna threw herself into her father's arms, the words tumbling out. "Dad, Catherine locked me down here. She won't let me eat. She throws my food away. She's mean." A heavy silence fell over the basement. Catherine brought her hands to her face, tears beginning to stream down her perfectly made-up cheeks. "How can you say that, darling?" Her voice trembled with a perfect simulation of pain. "After everything I've done to bring us closer. Michael, I try so hard, but she just hates me." Michael pulled away from Anna, his face hardening as he looked at his daughter. "I can't believe you're making up these lies, Anna," he said, his voice loaded with disappointment. "Catherine has been trying so hard to be a good mother to you." The girl tried to protest, but the words died in her throat as she saw her father's expression. "But Dad, it's true. She locked me down here, she—" Catherine interrupted, her voice now firmer. "Michael, darling, I understand. It's only natural for her to feel jealous, losing her mother so young and now seeing her father with another woman." She moved closer to Anna, placing a hand on her shoulder with force disguised as affection. "But making up these terrible stories? That we cannot allow." Michael's face reddened with anger. "Go to your room, Anna, now," he ordered, pointing to the stairs. "And don't come out until you've learned to respect Catherine." The girl stumbled up the steps, tears blurring her vision. Behind her she could hear Catherine sobbing, and her father comforting her. "I'm sorry about this, darling. I'll have a serious talk with her." Later, locked in her room, Anna heard Catherine's voice through the door. "See, sweetheart? Your father will never believe you. Now it's just you and me, and things are going to get much worse." Catherine's soft laughter echoed down the hallway, leaving Anna trembling on her bed. "How will I survive?" she thought, clutching her teddy bear tightly. "No one believes me, no one can help me now." Night fell upon the Whitmore household, bringing with it a heavy and oppressive silence. In the dark room, Anna remained awake, replaying the day's events in her mind. Her father's harsh words echoed in her ears, mingled with Catherine's victorious laughter. "Mommy," she whispered into the darkness, "what do I do now? How do I make Daddy see the truth?" A week after the basement incident, Catherine entered Anna's room carrying a pile of old faded sheets. The smile on her face made the girl tremble, for she had already learned that each new smile from Catherine meant another torture to come. With a brusque movement, the stepmother ripped the covers off Anna's bed, tossing them into a corner. "From now on, you'll be sleeping in the servants' quarters," she announced, her voice dripping with venom. "But since we don't have any servants at the moment, you'll be sleeping on the floor. Spoiled little princesses need to learn their place." The servants' quarters were a cubbyhole at the back of the house, with peeling walls and a musty smell that made Anna's nose itch. Catherine shoved the girl inside, spreading the old sheets on the cold cement floor. The tiny space had no windows, only a weak lamp flickering on the ceiling, casting eerie shadows across the walls. "Welcome to your new palace, princess," Catherine mocked, slamming the door shut. "I hope the rats make good companions for you." The hours dragged by in that claustrophobic space, where the only sound was Anna's stomach growling with hunger. Catherine had reduced her meals to a single hard piece of bread per day and a cup of water. The girl could feel her clothes growing looser, her small body withering day by day. During the nights curled up on the rough sheets, she would whisper to herself, "I need to stay strong," Mommy always said, "after the storm comes the sun." But how long does a storm last? Months later, on a particularly cold morning, Catherine entered the room carrying a large, shiny pair of scissors. Her eyes glowed with cruel satisfaction as she approached Anna, who tried to shrink into the farthest corner of the room. "Come here, dear," Catherine called with false sweetness. "It's time we did something about that unruly hair of yours. Can't have the daughter of my husband looking like a savage." With a swift motion, she grabbed Anna's long black hair that her mother had so admired. The scissors began their merciless work, cutting the hair in an irregular, brutal fashion. Black strands fell around Anna like dark tears as Catherine murmured, "There, that's starting to show your true self. A beggar, a nobody." Silent tears streamed down the girl's face as she watched her beautiful locks being destroyed. "Mommy always said my hair was just like hers," Anna thought, feeling each snip of the scissors like a stab to her heart. "Now I've lost this memory of her too." After finishing with the hair, Catherine brought a pile of old tattered clothes probably scavenged from the trash. "Put these on," she ordered, tossing the rags at Anna's feet. "Your princess dresses don't suit you anymore." The garments were too big, dirty and foul-smelling. Anna donned them with trembling hands, feeling smaller and smaller inside those rag-like sacks. The reflection in the cracked mirror on the wall showed a different child, thin, pale, with unevenly shorn hair and dressed like a beggar. Catherine observed the transformation with obvious satisfaction. "There, your appearance finally matches your true nature," she said with a laugh. "Let's see what your father thinks of your new rebellious phase." Michael, who spent more and more time in his study, barely recognized his daughter when he saw her. His already pale face, made sickly by the illness consuming him, drained of even more color at the sight of Anna. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice weak with shock. Before Anna could answer, Catherine appeared, her face a mask of concern. "Oh, Michael, darling, she's just going through a very difficult phase," she sighed dramatically. "Cutting her own hair, ripping up all the nice clothes I give her. It's just a rebellious streak." Anna's heart ached to see how ill her father looked with each passing day. His hands shook constantly now, and dark circles marked the skin beneath his eyes. "Daddy, please," she tried, her voice choked with tears. "It's not what you think." But Michael only shook his head, too disappointed to argue. "Catherine's trying so hard to help you, daughter," he murmured, coughing. "Why won't you let her?" The nights in the servants' quarters became an even greater torment. The cold seeped through the rags Anna now wore, and the sounds of the old house seemed more menacing than ever. Lying on the hard floor, she could hear Catherine's voice and her father's upstairs. Hers always sweet and attentive, his growing weaker and more distant by the day. "He's dying," Anna thought, hugging her knees to her chest. "And there's nothing I can do to stop it." Each morning brought new humiliations. Catherine made a point of parading Anna in front of visitors, as if she were proof of her infinite patience with a troubled child. "See how I try to help her," she would say to the friends who came for tea. "But she simply refuses to behave like a proper young lady." The women would nod in sympathy, while Anna remained in a corner dressed in her rags, feeling more and more invisible. The broken mirror became her only confidant. Every night before lying down on the cold floor, Anna looked at her fragmented reflection and whispered promises to herself. "One day I'll prove the truth. One day Daddy will see who she really is." But with each passing day, that hope seemed more distant. As her father's health deteriorated and Catherine's control over the house became more absolute. In her moments of solitude, Anna began to notice subtle changes in her father. It wasn't just the tremors or the paleness. There was something in his eyes, a growing emptiness that frightened her more than any of Catherine's cruelties. During a particularly silent dinner, she watched as he barely touched his food, his hands shaking so much he could barely hold his utensils. "He's fading away," she thought, feeling a lump in her throat. "And Catherine is smiling more and more." The days dragged on in a routine of hunger and humiliations. Catherine seemed to find a special pleasure in giving Anna impossible household tasks, only so she could punish her when she failed. "Clean the entire house before nightfall," she would order in the morning, knowing it would be impossible for a 7-year-old child. And at night, when she inevitably found some flaw, she would smile her cruel smile. "No dinner today, you useless thing. Maybe tomorrow you'll learn to do it right." Anna's last thought before falling asleep that night was a silent prayer. "Please, someone needs to see the truth. Someone needs to save my father before it's too late." Upstairs, she could hear Michael's cough growing stronger, while Catherine's melodious laughter echoed through the empty hallways of the mansion. Night had already fallen over the mansion when Anna heard raised voices coming from her father's study. Creeping silently down the dark corridor, she approached the ajar door from which a strip of light projected onto the carpet. Catherine was yelling, her normally melodious voice transformed into something harsh and wild. "How could you deceive me like this, Michael? All this time. All this damn time." The sound of papers being thrown echoed through the room, followed by the dull thud of drawers being ripped out and violently emptied. The sound of Michael's weak voice could barely rise above Catherine's fury. "Darling, I can explain. Business was bad before you came to live here, but I thought we could recover." His words were cut off by the sound of shattering glass. Anna flinched, as she heard her stepmother let out a hysterical laugh. "Recover? Recover? You've been bankrupt for years. This mansion is mortgaged, all your accounts are in the red, and I married a failure." Anna watched, paralyzed, through the crack in the door, as Catherine furiously ripped books from the shelves, throwing them to the floor as if they were trash. Her green eyes, always so controlled, now shone with a wild fury. In her hands, papers and documents were torn into shreds that floated through the air like dirty snow. "I researched everything about you before the marriage," she bellowed, kicking a pile of books. "Your reputation, your social status. It's all lies. You sold me an illusion." A picture frame flew across the room, hitting the wall near the door where Anna peeked. It was a photo from her 5th birthday, with her mother still alive, everyone smiling. The glass shattered, and Catherine stomped on the photograph with her high heels, disfiguring the smiling faces. "I thought I had found a rich, powerful man," she continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "Instead, I married a broke widower and his useless daughter." Michael tried to rise from his chair, his pale face and trembling hands more pronounced than usual. "Catherine, please. Think of Anna." His words only seemed to further enrage the woman, who was now ripping the curtains from the windows. "Anna, that brat is just like you, a dead weight. I wasted months trying to get rid of her, and now I find out there was nothing to inherit." With frantic movements, Catherine began tearing every family photo she could find, destroying every happy memory Anna still had. Pictures of her mother, vacation photos, precious moments, all were reduced to shreds under Catherine's perfectly manicured nails. "Look at this," she screamed, ripping one photo after another. "Your perfect family, your perfect life, all lies." The once organized and elegant study now looked like a war zone. Torn books, scattered papers, overturned furniture. The destruction was total. Catherine grabbed a heavy crystal globe, a gift Michael had received in his prosperous days, and hurled it against the bookshelf. The crash was deafening, and shards of crystal scattered across the carpet like broken diamonds. Michael staggered towards Catherine, his face contorted in a mask of pain and despair. "Please stop. They're my daughter's memories." His weak voice could barely be heard over the sound of the destruction. Catherine turned to him, her disheveled hair and normally flawless face twisted in anger. "Memories? I'll give you something to remember." With a violent motion, she grabbed the last intact portrait on the wall, the photo of Michael's wedding with Anna's mother. The glass shattered as she threw it to the ground, her heels mercilessly piercing the smiling faces. "That's what I think of your precious family," she screamed, stomping on the remains of the photograph. "That's what I think of all your lies." It was at that moment that Michael clutched his chest, his face suddenly contorted in an expression of agony. Anna saw her father stagger, knocking over a lamp as he tried to steady himself on the table. His eyes were wide with pain and his breathing came in desperate gasps. "Dad!" she cried, finally revealing her presence as she pushed open the door. Catherine paused her destruction for a moment, watching with a cruel smile as Michael slid to the floor, still clutching his chest. "How fitting," she murmured, her tone of voice returning to normal alarmingly quickly. "The grand finale you deserve." Anna ran to her father, her small hands futilely trying to support him as he collapsed. Michael's body convulsed violently, his eyes rolling back as he struggled to breathe. Anna screamed for help, her tears falling onto her father's increasingly pale face. Catherine stood by, watching the scene with a disturbing calm, as if she were witnessing a particularly interesting play. Michael managed to raise a trembling hand towards his daughter, his lips moving in a desperate attempt to speak. "Ali, CIA," was all he could whisper before his eyes closed and his body went completely limp. Anna's scream echoed through the mansion, a sound of pure terror and despair that made the windows vibrate. Amidst the chaos of the destroyed study, among shattered glass and broken memories, Catherine finally moved. With calm steps, she picked up the phone and dialed a number. Her voice, now perfectly controlled and tearful, sounded through the receiver. "Hello, emergency. Please come quickly. My husband. I think he's had a heart attack." Anna remained kneeling beside her unconscious father, surrounded by the wreckage of her shattered life, as the sound of sirens began to echo in the distance. The satisfied smile on Catherine's face, reflected in the broken glass of one of the picture frames, would be an image that would haunt her forever. The smell of disinfectant and medication permeated the air of the hospital corridor where Anna sat, her bare feet swinging without touching the ground. It had been 3 days since her father had been admitted, and she still hadn't been able to see him. Catherine kept a constant guard at the door of the room, her heels echoing on the vinyl floor as she circled like a vulture, preventing any attempt by the girl to approach. "You've caused enough trouble," she would whisper when the doctors weren't around. "Your father is in a coma because of you, you little homewrecker." The doctors rushed past, their clipboards full of notes Anna couldn't understand. Every time she tried to ask about her father's condition, Catherine would appear as if by magic, her melodious voice interrupting any possibility of communication. "Oh, doctor, she's so distraught," she would say, placing a hand on Anna's shoulder with enough force to hurt. "It's better not to comment in front of her. The poor thing has already caused enough trauma to her father." During the long hours of waiting, Anna watched the movement of the hospital through eyes blurred by tears. Nurses went in and out of her father's room, carrying trays of medications and equipment. On one of these occasions, she overheard one of the doctors commenting on Michael's strange resistance to the treatments. "It's as if the medications aren't having any effect at all," he said, frowning at his notes. As if he were taking water instead of medicine. The doctor's words awakened a memory in Anna, all those nights when she had seen Catherine tampering with her father's medications, switching pills between different bottles. Her heart began to beat faster as the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. It wasn't just the hospital medications, she thought, feeling a chill run down her spine. She's been doing this for months. One night, when the activity in the hospital died down and Catherine left to grab a coffee, Anna seized the opportunity. Sneaking down the silent corridor, she slipped stealthily into her father's room. The sight of Michael connected to various machines, tubes protruding from his arms and a respirator covering his face, made her heart ache. "Daddy," she whispered, holding his cold hand. "Please wake up. I need to tell you the truth." Near the bed there was a small table with several bottles of medication. Anna examined each one, remembering how her mother, who was a nurse, used to explain different medicines. One of the bottles caught her attention. The color of the pills was different from what she remembered seeing at home. With trembling fingers, she opened the bottle and took out a pill, comparing it to another she found in Catherine's coat, hanging on the chair. The sound of heels in the corridor made Anna quickly hide behind a screen. Catherine entered the room, silently closing the door behind her. With precise movements, she began switching the pills from the hospital bottles with others she brought in her purse. "Sleep well, dear," she murmured with false sweetness. "Soon, very soon, all this suffering will be over." Anna's heart was beating so loudly that she feared Catherine might hear it. From her hiding place, she watched in horror as her stepmother methodically replaced each medication. The original pills disappeared into a small plastic bag, while identical fake drugs took their place. "A few more days," Catherine whispered to Michael's unconscious body, "and all your fortune, or what's left of it, will be mine." A sudden movement from Michael in the bed made Catherine quickly recoil. For a moment, it seemed as if he might wake up, his fingers twitching slightly. Anna held her breath, waiting, praying for her father to open his eyes. But he only let out a deep sigh and returned to his previous stillness. Catherine gave a soft, cold, cruel laugh that made Anna shudder. "Not even in your final moments can you do anything right, can you, Michael?" When Catherine finally left the room, Anna waited a few minutes before leaving her hiding place. Carefully, she took one of the original pills her stepmother had discarded, tucking it into the pocket of her ragged dress. It was the proof she needed, small but concrete, of Catherine's wickedness. "I'll save you, Daddy," she promised in a whisper, kissing Michael's cold forehead. "I won't let her hurt you anymore." In the corridor, Anna could hear Catherine talking to the doctors, her voice filled with false concern. "I don't understand why he's not responding to the treatment, doctor. I'm doing everything exactly as prescribed." The girl clutched the pill in her pocket, feeling tears of anger burning her eyes. "You're a monster," she thought, watching her stepmother act. "But now I know the truth." The rest of the night dragged on like an eternity. Anna remained seated in her chair in the hallway, firmly holding the evidence of Catherine's crime in her pocket. Each time a nurse entered the room to administer the fake medications, she felt her heart tighten. "How do I make someone believe me?" she thought desperately. "Who will believe a child over such a convincing adult?" Through the hospital window, Anna watched the city lights blinking in the darkness. Out there somewhere, was there someone who could help her? Someone who would see through Catherine's perfect mask? Her mother's words echoed in her memory. "The truth always finds its way, my love. Even on the darkest nights there's a light waiting to shine." The sound of Michael's heart monitor marked a constant and weak rhythm, like a clock counting the precious moments that remained. Anna knew she needed to act fast. Each minute that passed was a minute her father received more fake medicine instead of the medications that could save him. In her pocket, the small pill seemed to burn like an ember, constantly reminding her of the terrible truth she had uncovered. A movement in the room caught her attention. Catherine was putting something in her purse. Through the half-open door, Anna saw a vial fall and roll under the bed. Her stepmother, too busy talking to a nurse, didn't notice. This was her chance. Tomorrow, thought Anna, her small body trembling with determination. Tomorrow I'll find someone who can help me. There has to be someone who believes me. The late night at the hospital was silent, broken only by the constant beeping of heart monitors and the distant whisper of footsteps in the hallway. Hannah had managed to sneak into her father's room when Catherine finally succumbed to fatigue and went home to change. The girl held Michael's cold hand in hers, watching his pale, motionless face under the dim fluorescent light. "Daddy," she whispered repeatedly like a prayer, "please don't leave me alone, don't leave me with her." A subtle movement of Michael's fingers made Anna's heart leap. His eyes, closed for so long, began to flutter lightly. The girl squeezed her father's hand tighter, leaning over the bed. The heart monitor showed a change in rhythm, the beeps becoming more frequent. Slowly, painfully, Michael opened his eyes, his unfocused gaze trying to fix on his daughter's face. "Ali? CIA?" His voice was little more than a hoarse whisper. "My little princess." Tears streamed down Anna's face as she tried to control her emotion. Carefully, she helped her father drink some water. Michael seemed to struggle to keep his eyes open, but his gaze was full of love as he looked at his daughter's face. "Forgive me," he whispered, his voice choked. "I should have protected you better. I should have seen." A coughing fit interrupted his words, making his frail body tremble on the hospital bed. Anna held his hand tightly, as if she could keep him there through that contact. "Don't say anything, Dad," she whispered, tears flowing freely. "Just stay with me, please. I love you so much." Michael squeezed Anna's hand with a sudden force, his eyes now completely focused on her. "You're just like your mother," he said, a small smile appearing on his pale lips. "So strong, so brave. Catherine, she..." His voice began to fail and an expression of panic crossed his face. The sound of heels in the hallway made Anna freeze. Michael heard it too, his face contorting in anguish. "My daughter," he whispered urgently. "Be strong, your mother. She will always." The words were cut off by another coughing fit, more violent than the last. "Daughter, I need to tell you something important about Catherine. She..." The heart monitor began to beep more rapidly, its erratic rhythm echoing through the room. Catherine appeared at the door like a sinister apparition, her face a mask of false concern. "Michael, dear, you're awake." Her melodious voice carried a note of barely concealed alarm. With quick movements, she approached the bed, pushing Anna away. "What are you doing here, you little pest? Do you want to kill your father for good?" Michael's eyes widened as he saw Catherine, an expression of terror taking over his pale face. He tried to reach Anna, his weak fingers grasping for his daughter in the air. "My little one," he managed to say, his voice almost inaudible. "Forgive me. I love you." The heart monitor emitted a shrill, continuous tone, its previously undulating line now completely flat. "No, no, no!" Anna shouted, trying to reach her father, but Catherine held her back with strength. "Dad, please don't leave me, Dad!" The doctors rushed into the room, initiating resuscitation procedures. Anna watched in horror, her legs giving way beneath her as the doctors tried to bring her father back. Every second seemed like an eternity, every failed attempt a stab in her heart. "Please, God," she sobbed, "don't take my father too." But the monotonous sound of the monitor didn't change. "Time of death," one of the doctors announced, his voice grave and professional. Anna felt her world crumble. A scream of pure agony escaped her lips, as she threw herself over her father's lifeless body, her small hands clutching the cold fabric of his hospital gown. Catherine, staging her own show of grief, ordered the nurses to take Anna out. The girl fought, struggled, screamed, but she was too small, too weak. Her last words to her father were lost amid the sobs. "Don't leave me alone, Dad. Please don't leave me with her." In the hallway, Anna collapsed, her small body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. Her father's last words echoed in her mind. He had tried to warn her about something, tried to protect her one last time, but now she was alone. Completely alone with the monster who had destroyed her family. Through her tears, she saw the fleeting smile of satisfaction on Catherine's face as she efficiently arranged the procedures. Anna's legs gave out completely, and she slid down the wall to the floor, hugging her knees to her chest. "Mum," she whispered into the void, "take care of Dad now, and help me survive." The sun rose on the horizon, indifferent to the pain that tore at little Anna's heart. In a few hours she would be forced to go back home with Catherine to the mansion that had once been her refuge and would now be her prison. But in that moment, sitting in the cold hospital hallway, all she could do was mourn the loss of the last pillar of her world, the last vestige of love and safety she had left. 3 days after Michael's funeral, Catherine entered the servants' room where Anna was huddled over her rags on the floor. The woman wore an elegant black dress, her mourning expression replaced by a cruel smile. "Put this on," she ordered, throwing an old coat at the girl who clutched her stuffed bear as if it could bring her comfort. "We're going for a little walk." Anna observed her stepmother's face, feeling a chill down her spine at the malicious glint in her green eyes. "Where are we going?" she asked softly, but Catherine only laughed. "You'll find out soon, darling." The car glided silently through the city streets, leaving familiar neighborhoods behind and entering increasingly dark and deserted areas. Hannah watched through the fogged-up window as elegant buildings gave way to abandoned structures and dark alleys. Her heart beat faster and faster, and she clutched the worn little stuffed bear tightly, the only memory she managed to bring from her room. "Dad," she thought, tears rolling down silently, "why did you leave me alone with this monster?" Catherine drove with an eerie calm, humming softly as they moved further and further away from civilization. The city lights were fading behind, and the darkness seemed to swallow the car. "You know, Anna," she said, not taking her eyes off the road, "your father was a fool until the end. He died believing I actually cared about you. Pathetic." Her words were like stabs in the girl's already broken heart. "Why do you hate us so much?" Anna whispered, but her only answer was another cruel laugh. The car came to an abrupt stop on a deserted street, surrounded by abandoned buildings and lit only by the faint light of a distant street lamp. Catherine turned off the engine and turned to Anna with a smile that made the girl tremble. "We're here, Princess. Your new palace awaits." With a quick motion, she got out of the car and opened the passenger door, grabbing Anna by the arm with enough force to leave marks. The cold night air cut like knives as Catherine dragged Anna out of the car. The girl stumbled, falling onto the rough asphalt, her stuffed bear rolling away. "If you want to be a beggar so badly," said Catherine, kicking the toy into a corner, "here's your chance. It'll match your clothes and hideous hair perfectly." Anna tried to get up, her scratched hands bleeding slightly. "Please," she pleaded, her voice shaking, "don't leave me here." Catherine only smiled, adjusting her expensive leather gloves with deliberate movements. "Oh, but this is the perfect place for you, darling. Here there's no one to hear your lies, no one for you to manipulate like you did with your father." The sound of Catherine's heels echoed on the asphalt as she walked back to the car. Anna ran after her, her little legs stumbling in haste. "Catherine, please, I'll do anything. Don't abandon me here." Her pleas were swallowed by the night as her stepmother calmly entered the vehicle. The car engine roared to life, and the headlights illuminated the deserted street. Anna banged on the driver's window, her tears blurring her vision. "Please," she screamed, desperate, "I'll die here alone." Through the glass, she could see Catherine's satisfied smile. "That's the idea, darling," she replied, shifting into gear. The car began to move, slowly at first, then gaining speed. Anna ran alongside, her hands still pounding on the window. "Help!" she screamed into the empty night. "Someone help me!" But there was no one to hear her desperate cries, no one to witness her agony. Catherine accelerated further, leaving Anna behind. The girl kept running, her lungs burning with the effort, her bare feet cut by the rough asphalt. "Come back!" Her voice echoed off the walls of the abandoned buildings. "Don't leave me here!" The car's taillights grew smaller and smaller, two red dots in the darkness that would soon disappear completely. Anna ran with all the strength she had, but her little legs were no match for the machine. The sound of the engine faded until it was only a distant echo. When she finally stopped running, Anna was completely alone in the darkness. The night's silence was oppressive, broken only by her desperate sobs. She stumbled back to where her stuffed bear had fallen, hugging it tight to her chest as if it were her last anchor to the world she knew. The reality of her situation was sinking in. She was alone, abandoned in an unknown and dangerous part of the city, with no food, no water, no shelter. The night's cold seeped through her thin clothes, making her shiver uncontrollably. "Mom, Dad," she whispered between sobs, "why did you leave me with her?" The shadows seemed to move around her, creating menacing shapes on the crumbling walls of the buildings. Distant sounds made her heart race, dogs barking, faraway sirens, the occasional noise of footsteps. Anna huddled against a wall, trying to make herself as small as possible. Sounds of footsteps and distant voices made Anna hide behind a dumpster, her little body trembling with fear and cold. The night was just beginning, and she could already feel the terror of what was to come. "How will I survive here?" she thought, clutching her bear tightly. "Where do I go now?" 6 months of life on the streets had completely transformed Anna. Her once healthy body was now far too thin, bones protruding under dirty skin. Her hair, which Catherine had cut grotesquely, had grown irregularly and matted, partially covering her gaunt, pale face. Sitting on the sidewalk in front of the church, she hugged her worn, stuffed bear, her only companion on cold, lonely nights. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm still the same girl, Dad," she whispered to herself, watching people pass without noticing her. "Would you even recognize me now?" That morning, as she did every day since her mother had taught her to have faith, Anna dragged herself to the steps of the church to pray. Her weak knees trembled from hunger as she sat on the staircase, watching the movement of well-dressed people entering for a wedding. "Mommy always said God hears our prayers anywhere," she whispered to her worn, stuffed bear, her only companion in loneliness. Tears streamed down her dirty face as she clasped her hands in prayer. "Please, God, I'm so hungry, so cold. I need your help." It was then that the sound of a luxury car parking made her freeze. Through her tear-blurred eyes, Anna saw Catherine emerge from the vehicle, more elegant than ever in a white wedding dress. Instinctively, the girl hid behind a column, her heart pounding in her chest. Could it be a sign? She thought, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. Is God finally giving me a chance to show who she really is? Catherine was not alone and did not see her. Anna was used to being invisible now that she was a beggar, so she was not surprised. A tall, well-dressed man accompanied her discreetly. He wore a dark overcoat and kept his hands in his pockets, nervously looking around. Catherine smiled when she saw him, that same cold smile Anna knew so well. "Did you bring what I asked?" she whispered, her voice barely reaching the girl's attentive ears. The man nodded, taking from his pocket a small vial with a transparent liquid. "This will put your fiancé in a coma within minutes," he murmured, handing the vial to Catherine. "Remember, 3 drops in his drink, no more than that. Then keep administering the medication to keep him like that." Catherine put the vial in her designer purse, her green eyes shining with satisfaction. "Perfect. Everything is going as expected. I can't wait to have all that fortune for myself. Don't forget, you'll also get your share." Anna had to cover her mouth with her hands to muffle a cry of horror. Her suspicions were confirmed. Catherine had deliberately poisoned her father and now planned to do the same with her new fiancé. The girl moved to get a better view, her heart beating so hard she feared it would be heard. At that moment she gasped, and Catherine turned abruptly, her green eyes scanning the shadows. For one terrifying moment, her gaze met Anna's, and a cruel smile formed on her lips. Well, what do we have here?" she murmured, advancing like a predator towards its prey. Anna tried to run, but her months of hunger and weakness made her too slow. Catherine easily caught up with her, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the girl's thin arm. "What a pleasant surprise," she whispered, dragging Anna behind the church. I thought you'd be dead by now." Catherine dragged Anna through the empty corridors beside the church. Her nails dug into the girl's thin arm with surprising force. "So the street rat is still alive," she hissed, her hot breath on Anna's face. "You know, dear, you're just like a cockroach, hard to kill." The girl struggled, but months of hunger had robbed her of her strength. Her bare, dirty feet barely touched the ground as Catherine dragged her across the marble hallways. Reaching the back of the church, Catherine opened a heavy wooden door that revealed a small storage room. The smell of mold and dampness made Anna choke. "Please," she pleaded, her voice weak, "don't leave me here." With a cruel smile, Catherine held the girl's face between her fingers, squeezing her cheeks hard. "You know what's even more fun? My fiancé Henry is much richer than your father, and this time no one will stop me from getting what I want." With a violent motion, Catherine pushed Anna into the dark cubicle. The girl fell over old boxes and dusty objects, hitting her head against a shelf. Before she could get up, she heard the heavy sound of the door closing and the key turning in the lock. "This time, dear," Catherine's voice came through the door, laden with satisfaction, "I'll make sure you don't interfere with my plans again. And don't worry, after the wedding, I'll come back to finish our unfinished business." The sound of Catherine's heels echoed down the hallway, gradually fading into silence. In the stifling darkness, Anna could feel something warm trickling down her forehead from the fall. "Help!" she cried, her weak voice reverberating off the damp walls. "Somebody help me." But her only answer was the echo of her own desperate sobs. The small room was damp and dark, with no windows and only a sliver of light coming in under the door. Anna pounded on the door with her weak fists, screaming for help, but the church was too large and her voice too feeble. "Please, someone," she sobbed. "She's going to take someone else's life again. Someone has to believe me." Time passed with agonizing slowness in the darkness. Anna could hear distant voices, the sound of the organ being tested, people walking and talking about the wedding. No one seemed to notice her faint cries or the sounds of her pounding on the door. "I can't let it happen to this Henry like it did to Dad," she thought, tears streaming down her dirty face. Hunger and fatigue were starting to weigh on her, but Anna refused to give up. Catherine had destroyed her family, taken everything from her, and now planned to do the same to another innocent person. "I have to get out of here," she murmured to herself, feeling around in the darkness for a way out. "I have to stop her before it's too late." The sound of Catherine's heels returned, and her melodious voice came through the door. "Don't worry, darling. After the wedding, I'll come back to settle our little problem permanently." Her words made Anna shudder, knowing that this time Catherine would not make the mistake of leaving her alive. In the suffocating darkness of the storeroom, Anna desperately felt along the walls for an exit. Her fingers found a small opening near the ceiling, an old partially detached ventilation duct. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "When all seems lost, God always leaves a door open." With strength born of desperation, the girl stacked old boxes one on top of the other, ignoring the pain in her weakened limbs. "I can't let her take someone else's life again," she whispered to herself, her hands trembling as she scaled the makeshift mountain. "I can't let this happen to another man." The sound of the organ began to play the wedding march, its deep notes reverberating through the walls. Anna finally managed to reach the duct, her broken nails scratching the rusted metal as she tried to remove the grate. The space was tight, but months of starvation had reduced her small body to practically skin and bones. Gathering her last strength, she hoisted herself into the duct, the cold metal scratching her skin through the rags she wore. Crawling through the narrow metal tunnel, Anna followed the sound of the music. The accumulated dust made her eyes burn and her throat itch, but she couldn't stop now. Through the slits in the metal, she could see fragments of the ceremony below, elegantly dressed guests, white flowers everywhere. Catherine in her wedding dress, looking like a fallen angel with her radiant smile. "How can't they see?" she thought bitterly. "How don't they perceive the evil behind that mask?" The voices of the priest and the bride and groom echoed through the metal, reaching Anna's ears in fragments. "In sickness and in health," Henry said, his voice laden with love and trust. A bitter laugh escaped the girl's lips, the same words her father had spoken, sealing his own fate. The metal of the duct creaked under her weight, threatening to give away her presence at any moment. Carefully, Anna approached an air vent located directly above the altar. From there she could see the entire ceremony, the priest with his sacred book, Henry smiling passionately at his bride, and Catherine, oh Catherine, with that same look she had when she watched Michael take his adulterated medications. The girl felt her blood boil as she saw the vial discreetly hidden in the white satin purse the bride carried. The moment of "I do" was approaching. Anna knew she had to act now before it was too late. With a hard kick, she knocked the duct grate down, causing a clang that echoed through the silent church. Her small body fell onto the altar, knocking over flower arrangements and candlesticks. The guests gasped in shock, while Catherine recoiled, her face a mask of theatrical horror. "Stop!" Anna shouted, her hoarse voice echoing through the sacred walls. "Don't marry her, you won't survive!" Her wild eyes focused on Henry, who stared at her with a mixture of shock and revulsion. "She's going to take your life too, just like she did with my daddy. She has a vial in her purse. I heard her say she's going to put you in a coma to get everything you have." Catherine immediately assumed her victim role, false tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Oh, Henry," she sobbed, clinging to the groom's arm. "It's that poor disturbed girl I told you about, my late husband's daughter. She never accepted our union, and now she wants to destroy my happiness again." Henry, who had smiled with such love before, now had his face twisted in fury. "How dare you?" he thundered, advancing threateningly towards Anna. "How dare you invade this sacred place with your sick lies?" The girl recoiled, but remained steadfast, her eyes fixed on Catherine's, who smiled discreetly behind her bridal veil. "Please," Anna begged, her tears now leaving trails on her dirty face. "Look in her purse. The vial is there. She bought it today, I saw. She's going to do to you the same thing she did to my dad." Her voice broke with urgency and desperation, but all she saw on the faces around her was disbelief and disgust. The security guards were already approaching, their heavy footsteps echoing down the center aisle. Catherine continued her flawless performance, hiding her face in Henry's chest as if devastated. "Get this crazy beggar out of here," Henry ordered, his voice thundering through the church. "How can she invent such horrible lies about someone as sweet and gentle as Catherine?" He then whispered something in one of the guards' ears. Anna tried to run towards Catherine's purse, desperate to prove her story. But the guards already had her arms in their grip. Her bare, dirty feet left marks on the red carpet as she struggled. "She's lying!" she screamed, her voice growing weaker. "Can't you see she lies about everything?" The crowd of guests murmured in disapproval, some covering the eyes of the children present, others making the sign of the cross. Anna could see Catherine's victorious smile behind her bridal veil as she comforted Henry. Poor thing, her melodious voice dripping with false compassion. Her father's death disturbed her so, always such a troublemaker. The guards dragged Anna towards the exit, her desperate screams echoing fainter and fainter through the church. "She's going to. You won't survive." Her voice broke into sobs. "Henry, please, don't let her do to you what she did to my dad." But her words were lost in the shocked murmur of the guests and the sound of the organ that began to play again, as if trying to erase the stain of her presence from that sacred moment. The church doors closed with a dull thud behind Anna. Once again, no one believed her. No one wanted to hear the truth she had to tell. Through the stained glass windows, she could see the silhouettes of the bride and groom resuming their positions at the altar. "Mum, Dad," she whispered, "forgive me for not being able to stop it. Forgive me for being too weak." The sound of Anna's sobs mingled with the music that began to play again inside the church. In there, she knew Catherine was about to get her next victim, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Like her father, Henry was blinded by love, unable to see the venom behind his bride's angelic smile. How long until he too is in a hospital bed, Anna thought, feeling the weight of her helplessness. How long until she makes another innocent suffer, she thought as the guards carried her away. The presidential suite of the city's most luxurious hotel shone under the late afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Catherine moved around the room with the grace of a dancer, still wearing her slightly crumpled wedding dress after the ceremony. Henry was reclined in a red velvet armchair, seemingly absorbed in his tablet, but his eyes occasionally followed his new wife's every move. The words of that ragamuffin girl at the church still echoed in his mind, but his face showed no disturbance. "Darling," Catherine's melodious voice cut the silence. "How about a special toast to celebrate our first night as husband and wife?" Catherine headed to the small bar in the suite. Her back turned to Henry as she prepared the drinks. Her delicate hands chose two identical crystal glasses, placing them on the marble counter with studied precision. With fluid motions, she poured champagne into both, the golden liquid softly bubbling. Henry continued pretending to read, but he didn't miss a single movement from his new wife. "This moment needs to be perfect," she said, her voice laced with a sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "As perfect as I've dreamed." With a quick and discreet motion, Catherine retrieved the small vial from her white satin purse. Her perfectly painted nails removed the cap with precision, and she tilted the vial over one of the glasses, letting exactly 3 drops of the clear liquid fall into the champagne. Henry, still feigning distraction, observed the reflection of this movement in the window glass, his face a mask of studied indifference. The glasses clinked softly as Catherine picked them up, turning to face her new husband with a radiant smile. "Just a moment, darling," she said, placing the glasses on the coffee table. "I need to freshen up a bit. This dress is suffocating me." With graceful steps, she headed to the suite's bathroom, the sound of her heels echoing on the marble floor. As soon as the bathroom door closed, Henry moved with the swiftness of a feline. In seconds, he was by the table, his skilled fingers switching the position of the glasses with a precise and silent motion. The sound of running water in the bathroom masked any noise he might have made. So the little beggar was right, he thought, quickly returning to his armchair. "You haven't changed at all, have you, Catherine?" The scent of Catherine's expensive perfume announced her return even before she emerged from the bathroom. She had removed the veil and let her hair down, which now fell in golden waves over her shoulders. Her green eyes shone with predatory anticipation as she approached the glasses. "To our love," she proposed, elegantly raising her glass. "May it be eternal." Henry smiled, silently raising his own glass in a toast. Catherine brought the glass to her red-painted lips, taking a long sip of the champagne. Henry watched every movement, every expression on his wife's face as he pretended to drink from his own glass. "Delicious," she murmured, licking her lips with satisfaction. "As sweet as a dream." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft sound of the champagne bubbles and Catherine's increasingly labored breathing. Her green eyes began to lose focus, and her hands trembled slightly as she placed the glass on the table. "Are you feeling all right, dear?" Henry asked, his voice calm and controlled. "You look a bit pale." A glimmer of understanding began to dawn in Catherine's eyes as she felt the first waves of dizziness. Her once radiant face now showed the first signs of panic. She looked at her glass, then at Henry, who remained calmly seated in his armchair. "What? What did you do?" she whispered, her voice losing that artificial sweetness. Henry rose slowly, placing his untouched glass on the table. "I didn't do anything, dear," he replied, his voice now laced with a coldness Catherine had never heard before. "I merely let you taste your own poison. Isn't that what you had planned?" Catherine's legs began to fail her, and she had to lean against the wall to avoid falling. Her perfect face was now twisted into a mask of rage and fear. You knew?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "How?" Henry approached her, his face a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. "Let's just say a little beggar girl opened my eyes. I just pretended not to believe her to see how far you'd take this charade. I believe the girl should be at my mansion by now, as I had my security bring her there." Catherine's body slid down the wall until she was on the floor, her limbs growing heavier by the second. The wedding dress pulled around her like spilled milk. "I should have ended that little pest when I had the chance," she mumbled, her words starting to slur, "just like I did with her mother." Henry knelt by Catherine's side, watching as she struggled to keep her eyes open. "So it wasn't just the girl's father?" he asked, his voice laced with revulsion. "How many lives did you take, Catherine?" She tried to answer, but her words trailed off into a feeble moan as darkness began to cloud her vision. Catherine's last conscious thoughts were of hatred. Hatred for the girl who had survived, hatred for Henry who had uncovered her plan, hatred for everyone who had ruined her perfect scheme. Her vision went completely dark, and her body went limp against the cold marble floor. Henry watched the unconscious body of his wife, the wedding dress now stained with spilled champagne. He took out his phone, and dialed a number. "It's done," he said simply. "Call the police and an ambulance. It's time for Catherine Whitmore to finally pay for her crimes." The sound of sirens shattered the night silence as ambulance and police cars arrived at the luxurious hotel. Their red and blue reflections danced across the windows of the presidential suite, where Catherine lay unconscious on the Persian rug, her wedding dress spread around her like broken wings of a fallen angel. Henry observed the scene with a mixture of revulsion and relief as he recounted the night's events to the police officers. "She confessed," he said, his voice firm. "She confessed to killing not only her first husband, but also her first wife." The paramedics worked quickly, connecting Catherine to monitoring devices and preparing her for transport. Her vital signs were weak and irregular, the medication she had prepared herself now coursing through her veins. One of the doctors approached Henry, his face grave. "Her condition is critical," he informed him, checking the notes on his clipboard. "We need to take her to the hospital immediately. Every minute could make the difference if she survives." The investigators meticulously searched the room, collecting evidence. The small medicine bottle was found in Catherine's white satin purse, along with other similar bottles and a notebook with detailed notes on her previous victims. "It's unbelievable," muttered one of the officers, flipping through the notebook. "She documented everything, every plan, like a diary." Catherine's body was transferred to a gurney, tubes and wires connected to monitors that emitted increasingly weak and irregular beeps. Her face, once so perfectly made up, was now pale and covered by a thin layer of sweat. The lips that had recently smiled victoriously were starting to turn bluish. "It's ironic," Henry thought, watching the paramedics take his wife away. "What she prepared for me is now destroying her from the inside." The corridors of the luxurious hotel, usually silent at that time of night, were crowded with police officers and onlookers trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. Henry followed the gurney to the elevator, giving his statement to a detective. "She planned everything," he explained, his voice laced with bitterness. "But she didn't count on me believing the warning of a little beggar girl." In the hotel lobby, more police officers waited with handcuffs ready in case Catherine regained consciousness. The hotel manager tried to control the situation, asking the whispering staff for discretion, shocked by the events. The bride tried to take the groom's life on their wedding night, the rumors spread, just like she did with her previous husband. The ambulance departed at high speed, its sirens cutting through the night as it transported Catherine to the nearest hospital. Henry followed in a police car, his tuxedo now crumpled after the tense hours. In the back seat, he reflected on how his wedding night had turned into a scene of terror. "Who would have thought that little ragged girl would save my life?" he thought, remembering Anna's desperate face in the church. At the hospital, an emergency team was already waiting for Catherine's arrival. The doctors ran alongside the gurney as she was rushed to the intensive care unit. The monitors continued to emit increasingly worrying sounds, indicating that her organs were starting to fail. "We need to perform gastric lavage immediately," ordered one of the doctors, "and prepare the strongest antidote we have." Henry waited in the waiting room, giving more statements to the police while the doctors fought to save Catherine's life. The bottle had been sent for analysis, but preliminary results indicated an extremely toxic and sophisticated substance. "She knew exactly what she was doing," commented an investigator, examining the preliminary report. "This medication was specifically developed to simulate a coma." The hours dragged on as the doctors worked tirelessly. Occasionally, nurses would run in and out of the ICU, carrying bags of medication and equipment. The distant sound of medical orders and heart monitors echoed through the sterile corridors. "She's fighting," a doctor informed during a brief update. "But we don't know if her body will withstand the trauma." The sun was beginning to rise when the chief physician finally came out to speak with Henry and the investigators. His face was tired after hours of intense work, and his expression was grave. "We managed to stabilize her," he said, removing his surgical mask, "but she has fallen into a deep coma. We cannot predict if or when she will wake up." The police officers exchanged meaningful glances. If Catherine survived, there would be a trial, but if she died, she would take the details of all her crimes with her. Henry watched through the ICU window at his wife's motionless body, connected to dozens of machines and tubes. "The deeper we dig," said an investigator, flipping through more reports that were arriving. "The more victims we find. This woman is a monster." A nurse hurried out of the ICU, her face worried as she consulted the monitors. "Doctor," she called urgently, "her vital signs are fluctuating again." The chief physician rushed back inside the unit, leaving a final sentence hanging in the air. "We don't know if she'll survive the next 24 hours. Only time will tell if justice will be served in this world or the next." Henry remained at the ICU window, watching the doctors fight to keep Catherine alive. In his hands he held the small notebook found in her purse, its pages revealing a web of lies and destruction that stretched back months. Divine justice had used its own way to bring her down, but it remained to be seen if she would survive to also face the justice of men. Catherine's eyes slowly opened in the dim hospital room, her mind emerging from the coma like a snake uncoiling in the sun. The heart monitor by her side emitted a constant irritating beep, and she could feel tubes and wires connected all over her body. The rage and hatred that had kept her alive during the coma now fueled her determination. "For that little pest and that traitor will pay dearly," she thought, tasting the bitter flavor of revenge on her tongue. "But first I need to get out of here." With calculated and painful movements, Catherine began to assess her situation. Each small motion was an agony after days of inactivity, but she forced herself to continue. First, she located the silence button on the heart monitor. She knew she would need to turn it off before removing the electrodes so as not to alert the nursing staff. One by one, she removed the electrodes from her chest, silencing the monitor before it could trigger any alarm. The oxygen tube in her nose was ripped out with a quick motion, and she bit her lip not to groan in pain. The IV needle was the most difficult part. Her hands were shaking as she removed it, and a small stain formed on her arm. "Come on, you weakling," she muttered to herself. "It won't be a set of tubes that will stop you." Sitting up in bed was an even greater challenge. Her atrophied muscles, weakened by the coma, protested with every movement. The world spun violently when she finally managed to rise, and she had to hold onto the bed rails to keep from falling. She took several deep breaths, waiting for the dizziness to pass. "If that beggar girl could endure months on the streets," she thought bitterly, "I can certainly get up from this damn bed." After what seemed like an eternity, Catherine managed to place her feet on the cold hospital floor. Her legs trembled like branches in a storm, but she forced herself to stand, leaning against the bed. Each step was a battle against gravity and her own weakness. Finally, she reached the door to her room and peeked outside. That's when she saw her golden opportunity. Through the half-open door, she could see the police officer assigned to watch over her. His head was tilted forward, his cap partially covering his face as he snored softly, the result of a double shift and the false sense of security that came with guarding a comatose patient. Catherine allowed a small smile to form on her chapped lips. "Fool," she thought, watching the guard's deep slumber. "Everyone always underestimates me." With silent steps, she returned inside the room. On a chair, she found some clothes. She dressed as quickly as she could, every movement calculated not to make a sound. Her now fully alert green eyes focused on the room's window, her escape route. The hospital's old window could still be opened manually, a security flaw that now played in her favor. Outside, an ancient tree stretched its branches like welcoming arms. The moonless night would be her perfect ally. Luck or fate? She wondered, unlocking the window with trembling fingers. Perhaps both are on my side this time. The cold night air invaded the room as Catherine opened the window. The police officer continued to sleep soundly, oblivious to the escape happening just a few meters away. Carefully, she swung one leg through the window, then the other, gripping the windowsill with all the strength her weakened muscles allowed. The nearest branch was within reach of her fingers. Catherine stretched out her arm, ignoring the pain coursing through her body. A small moan escaped her lips as she finally grasped the branch, but the sound was swallowed by the night. The rough bark scraped her hands, but adrenaline neutralized any pain. The descent was slow and torturous. Each movement had to be calculated. One mistake would mean a fall and the end of her escape. Her muscles trembled with the effort, but the promise of revenge kept her moving. Anna, she thought as she climbed down. You'll wish you'd never crossed my path. When her feet finally touched the ground, Catherine allowed herself a moment of triumph. She looked up at her room's window, imagining the chaos they would find in the morning. A satisfied smile played on her lips as she blended into the shadows of the hospital garden. The garden provided perfect cover as she moved away from the building. Each step took her further from her prison. Each movement brought her closer to her revenge. The night swallowed her like a silent accomplice, hiding her from the eyes of the world. The next morning, the nurse's scream echoed through the hospital corridors when she found the empty room and the officer still asleep in his chair. The open window let in the morning breeze, the sole witness to the serpent that had slipped away during the night. The torn tubes hung by the empty bed, and the silenced heart monitor kept the secret of her escape. The doctors and police officers who stormed the room found only emptiness and a mortified guard, now fully awake and aware that his career had likely ended along with his watch shift. In the air hung an unspoken question. Where would a woman like Catherine go, driven only by hatred and thirst for revenge? Henry's mansion was a stark contrast to the streets where Anna had survived for the past few months. The girl sat on a soft couch, clean and wearing new clothes for the first time since Catherine had abandoned her. Her hair, still uneven from her stepmother's cruel cut, had been washed and carefully brushed. In her small, now clean hands, she held a trembling cup of hot chocolate. It's strange, she thought, staring at her reflection in the dark drink. I don't feel dirty anymore, but I'm still so afraid. Henry entered the room with soft steps, trying not to startle the girl who still flinched at sudden movements. He sat in a nearby armchair, keeping a respectful distance. Anna, he began gently, I want to tell you something. On the day of the wedding, when you burst into the church, I didn't order you to be kicked out like everyone thought. He paused, observing the girl's reaction. As you must have realized, I had my most trusted security guard bring you to my home. Anna timidly raised her eyes, confusion etched on her thin face. But you yelled at me, she whispered, the memory still painful in her mind. You called me a crazy beggar. Her hands gripped the cup tighter, as if seeking something to anchor herself in reality. Henry shook his head gently. I needed Catherine to believe that I didn't care about your words. But there was something in your despair, in your courage to face all those adults. I knew you were telling the truth. The first tears began to roll down the girl's face, creating ripples in the hot chocolate she held. 6 months of loneliness, hunger, and despair on the streets seemed to weigh even heavier now that she was finally safe. You believed me. Her voice was just a choked whisper, even when everyone laughed and called me crazy. Yes, Anna, Henry replied, his voice gentle but firm. I saw truth in your eyes. I saw the pain of someone who was desperately trying to save another person. No child would be capable of making up something like that. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his movements slow and predictable. I'm sorry I couldn't rescue you sooner, but we needed proof of your words, otherwise she would be out free. A deep sob escaped Anna's chest, and the mug in her hands began to tremble dangerously. Henry gently took it and placed it on the table, allowing the girl to finally let herself cry, not tears of fear or despair, but of relief. Nobody believed, she sobbed. Not even my father saw who she really was. The sun was beginning to set outside, casting orange shadows through the tall windows of the mansion. You're safe now, Henry said softly. Catherine is in the hospital in a coma, and when she wakes up, she'll go straight to prison. She will never be able to hurt you or anyone else again. Anna hugged her worn teddy bear tightly, the only friend left from her previous life. Her sobs were beginning to subside, replaced by a deep weariness that came not only from her body, but from her soul. Where will I go now? She asked, fear still present in her voice. I have no one left in the world. It was at that moment that all the lights in the mansion flickered simultaneously. Henry straightened up in his armchair, suddenly alert. The house's security system emitted a strange beep, and the sound of doors automatically locking echoed through the halls. The sun had completely disappeared now, plunging the mansion into a disturbing darkness. Anna felt her heart race in her chest as the shadows seemed to come to life around them. The lights continued to flicker, growing weaker and weaker, turning the room into a sinister kaleidoscope of darkness and light. Mr. Henry, she whispered, her voice trembling, something is wrong. The metallic sound of more doors locking echoed through the house, turning the refuge into a trap. Henry rose quickly, moving to stand between Anna and the room's door. The lights gave one last feeble flicker before going out completely, plunging everything into utter darkness. In the silence that followed, only Anna's quickened breathing could be heard. The darkness seemed to press against them like a living thing, and the fear that the girl had known so well on the streets came back in full force. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and she could feel it in every fiber of her being. The mansion, which just minutes ago had seemed a sanctuary of safety, had now become a dark and frightening prison. Henry tried to reach for his phone to call for help, but found there was no signal. It was as if the outside world had simply vanished, leaving them isolated in the darkness. A cold draft swept through the room, making Anna huddle even closer on the couch. The sound of soft footsteps echoed somewhere in the mansion, so familiar that it made her blood run cold in her veins. The last words her stepmother had said in the hospital echoed in her mind. "After the wedding, I'll come back to permanently resolve our little problem." Now in the complete darkness of the isolated mansion, those words took on a new and terrifying meaning. In the darkness of the room, only the light of the moon shining through the tall windows cast ghostly shadows on the walls. Anna and Henry remained motionless, their eyes straining to adjust to the dim light surrounding them. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of their hushed breathing. "Something's wrong," Anna thought, her heart beating so hard it seemed to want to escape her chest. "I know this feeling. It's the same one I felt when she approached my room at night." A subtle movement in the shadows caught Henry's attention. Before he could react, a familiar silhouette emerged from the darkness. Catherine was unrecognizable. Her face, once always impeccable, was now marred by exhaustion and fury. Her clothes, still from the hospital, were soiled and torn. In her right hand, something metallic reflected the moonlight. What a touching reunion! Her melodious voice cut through the silence like ice. "The little beggar has found a new protector." Anna tried to back away, but found herself cornered between the couch and the wall. Her eyes couldn't stray from the shiny object in Catherine's hand, which gleamed menacingly with every movement. Henry took a step forward, trying to position himself between the two, but Catherine was faster. "Don't move, dear," she ordered, her voice now laced with venom, "or I'll have to hurt you before it's time." Catherine's face contorted into a mask of hatred as her eyes fixed on Anna. "You," she hissed, advancing slowly. "You destroyed everything. Months of planning, months of building the perfect life, and you, an insignificant brat, ruined it all." Her words were like acid, each syllable charged with a fury that made Anna tremble. "All my hard work," Catherine continued, her green eyes glinting dangerously in the darkness. "First your mother, so easy to make it look like an accident. Then your father, so naive, so in love. And now Henry, my chance to finally have the life I deserve." She laughed, a joyless sound that echoed through the room. "But you had to survive, didn't you? Like a cockroach that refuses to die." Henry tried discreetly to reach for his phone, but Catherine noticed the movement. With a surprising agility for someone who had just come out of a coma, she kicked the device away. "No, no, dear," she crooned. "No calling for help. This is a private family reunion." Anna felt her legs trembling, but something inside her had changed. Months on the streets had taught her that sometimes fear can turn into strength. "Did you kill my mother?" she asked, her voice small but firm. "All this time it wasn't an accident?" Catherine smiled, a cruel smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So clever. Just like her. That's why you both had to disappear." "Why?" Anna's voice rose a little higher. "Why destroy our family?" Catherine let out a shrill, almost hysterical laugh. "Family? You were pathetic. An ordinary woman, a failed man, and an irritating child. I deserved more. I deserved wealth, power, respect." Henry took advantage of the moment of distraction to try to approach Catherine from behind, but she spun quickly, the metallic object in her hand cutting the air dangerously close to his face. "Don't be stupid, dear," she warned. "I don't want to have to get rid of you yet. First, I need to settle an old score." Catherine's eyes turned to fix on Anna again, now with murderous determination. "You know," she said, her voice once more soft and controlled, "I should have done this a long time ago, the first time I saw you with those accusing eyes just like your mother's." She began to approach slowly, like a snake preparing to strike. Anna felt the cold wall at her back, knowing she had nowhere left to run. The last 6 months of her life flashed before her mind like a movie. Her father's death, the nights of hunger on the streets, the constant fear. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "You're just an evil woman who doesn't know how to love anyone." The girl's words seemed to hit Catherine like a slap. Her face contorted into an expression of pure fury, all pretense of control disappearing. "You little pest," she roared, raising the metal object above her head. "I'll send you to join your mother." Time seemed to slow as Catherine advanced. Anna could see the moonlight reflecting off the metal, could feel her stepmother's hatred emanating in almost palpable waves. Henry shouted something, but the sound seemed distant, as if coming from another world. In the last moment before impact, a single thought crossed Anna's mind. "Mom, forgive me for not being strong enough." The blow never landed. A blur of movement crossed the room, and the sound of bodies colliding echoed off the walls. The last thing Anna saw before closing her eyes was Henry throwing himself between her and Catherine, his body serving as a human shield against his stepmother's murderous fury. The scream that followed was deafening, filling the mansion with a sound that Anna knew would haunt her nightmares forever. Time seemed to freeze in the moment Henry threw himself between Anna and Catherine. The metallic glint sliced through the air and found its target, not the heart of an innocent girl, but the chest of the man who chose to protect her. The sound of impact was followed by a deafening silence, broken only by Henry's startled gasp as he staggered backwards. "Run, Anna," he whispered, his voice already weak as his legs gave way. "Don't let her get you too." Catherine stepped back, watching with perverse satisfaction as Henry crumpled to the floor of the living room. His white shirt quickly grew dark with a spreading stain like spilled ink. His eyes found Anna's, trying to convey strength even as his own life drained away. "Why, dear?" Catherine asked, her voice strangely soft. "Why sacrifice yourself for a child you don't even know?" Henry's body spasmed with pain as he tried to stay conscious. Anna was paralyzed, her eyes fixed on the man who had just saved her life, the second father she was losing to Catherine's cruelty. "Because there are things," he answered with difficulty, "worth dying to protect. Something you'll never understand, Catherine." Tears streamed down Anna's face as she watched Henry's blood spread across the Persian rug. The scene was terribly familiar. Another good man dying because of her, another protector taken from her by the same woman who had destroyed her family. "I can't lose anyone else," she thought desperately. "I can't let her win again." The moon streaming through the tall windows cast dancing shadows across the macabre scene. Catherine twirled the bloodied object between her fingers, contemplating her next move with the calm of a sated predator. "Shall know, Henry," she said, approaching the fallen body. "You could have had it all. Wealth, power, a devoted wife. But you chose the wrong side of this story." Henry coughed, a wet and worrying sound as he tried to move. His eyes met Anna's again, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod towards the door. "Go," he mouthed silently. "Get help." Anna understood the message, but her legs felt like lead. How could she leave him alone with that monster? Catherine seemed utterly absorbed in her victory, circling Henry like a bird of prey. "It's poetic, don't you think?" she continued, her melodious voice laced with a sickening glee. "You tried to get in my way and now you're here, staining your own imported rug. Life has an interesting sense of humor." With superhuman effort, Henry managed to prop himself up on one elbow, his body shaking with the exertion. This movement caught Catherine's attention, and she leaned in to observe him more closely, momentarily forgetting about Anna. "Still trying to play the hero," she taunted. "So touching, so futile." Anna saw her chance as Catherine bent down near Henry. With her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, she began to move silently towards the door. Her bare feet made no noise on the stained carpet. "Forgive me," she thought, silent tears streaming down her face. "Please, just hold on a little longer." The sound of Henry's labored breathing filled the room as Catherine continued her cruel monologue. "After you die," she said, caressing his face with false tenderness, "I'll take care of your little protégé. It will be like a horror story with a happy ending, at least for me." Anna reached the door of the room, her heart nearly stopping when the old wood creaked under her fingers. Catherine whirled around at the sound, her green eyes blazing with renewed fury. "Where do you think you're going, dear?" she hissed, beginning to rise. But Henry, gathering his last strength, grabbed her ankle, preventing her from pursuing the girl. "Run!" Henry shouted, his voice laden with pain and urgency. Anna didn't hesitate further. She spun on her heels and dashed down the dark hallway of the mansion. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of struggle and Catherine's furious voice. "You little pest! Come back here!" The hallway seemed endless as Anna ran, her legs trembling with the effort. Every second away from Henry was an agony, but she knew it was the only chance to save him. "Please," she prayed as she ran, "don't let him die. Don't let her hurt anyone else." In the now distant room, Catherine shook off Henry's weakened hands with a violent motion. Her eyes alternated between the direction Anna had fled and the bleeding man at her feet. A cruel smile formed on her lips as she leaned down beside him again. "Don't worry, dear," she whispered sweetly. "I'll take good care of her, after I'm done with you." The moonlight continued to bathe the scene through the tall windows, turning the liquid stain on the Persian rug. Catherine leaned over him, her blonde hair creating a curtain that blocked the light. Somewhere in the mansion, Anna's desperate footsteps echoed ever more distant, a race against time to save the man who had sacrificed everything to protect her. Anna ran through the dark hallways of the mansion, her lungs burning with the effort. Behind her, she could hear Catherine's heels clicking on the marble floor, growing closer. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she rounded corners and climbed stairs, desperately searching for an exit. "I can't let Henry die," she thought, tears blurring her vision. "I can't lose anyone else to her." The sound of Catherine's footsteps echoed through the hallways like a harbinger of death. "Anna, darling," her melodious voice floated in the darkness. "Why make things difficult? Come to me, let's end our family story." The girl felt her heart freeze as she realized she had reached a dead end, a hallway that terminated in a large window. "Now there's nowhere left to run," Catherine sang, her silhouette appearing at the end of the corridor. That's when Anna saw the blue and red lights reflecting off the window glass. Sirens began to wail, shattering the silence of the night. Catherine's eyes widened in panic as the beams of light invaded the hallway. "Impossible," she whispered, taking a step back. "How?" The answer came in the form of a small device that fell from Anna's pocket, the panic button Henry had given her earlier before Catherine appeared. The sound of doors being kicked in echoed through the mansion, followed by authoritative voices shouting orders. Catherine looked at Anna one last time, her face a mask of pure hatred, before spinning on her heels and trying to flee. But it was too late. Police officers were already climbing the stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like swords of light. Catherine's capture was swift and violent. She fought and screamed as the officers handcuffed her, her blonde hair disheveled and her face contorted with fury. "You don't understand," she yelled, thrashing. "That girl destroyed my life. I need to finish what I started." But her words only served to tighten the cuffs around her wrists even more. Anna ran back to the room where Henry lay, her heart nearly stopping at the sight of the paramedics hunched over him. The Persian rug was soaked with blood, and Henry's face was as pale as paper. "Please," she whispered, her small hands clasped in prayer. "Please, don't let him die like my father." The medics worked quickly, hooking Henry up to machines and applying emergency dressings. Their voices were urgent as they radioed the hospital. "Male, approximately 40 years old, severe chest wound, need surgical team ready." Anna watched helplessly as they loaded him onto the gurney, the tubes and wires looking like white snakes in the flashlight beams. For a brief moment, as he was being wheeled to the ambulance, Henry opened his eyes. His gaze met Anna's and he tried to smile, but the pain twisted it into a grimace. "You made it," he whispered before his eyes closed again. The girl tried to follow, but was gently restrained by a policewoman holding her shoulders. Outside the mansion, Anna watched the 2 police cars depart, one carrying Catherine handcuffed, her screams still audible through the closed windows, the other escorting the ambulance bearing Henry. The red and blue lights painted the night like a macabre kaleidoscope, painfully reminding her of another night, not long ago, when she had lost her father. The policewoman who stayed with Anna took her to the hospital, where a waiting room would become her new purgatory. The hours dragged like years as she awaited news of the surgery. Her small hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every time a door opened, her heart leapt. He has to survive, she repeated to herself like a mantra. He's the only one who believed me. At the police station, Catherine was photographed and booked, her once elegant dress now stained with red. Her green eyes, once so alluring, now shone with barely contained madness as she shouted threats and accusations. The detective interrogating her found a notebook in her purse detailing all her crimes, not just against Michael and Henry, but also against Anna's mother. The hours in the hospital turned into an eternity of waiting. Anna huddled in the waiting room chair, her body exhausted but unable to rest. Every doctor that passed, every gurney pushed down the hallway made her heart jump. The policewoman who had stayed with her tried to offer comfort, but the words sounded hollow. Only one thing mattered now. Henry had to survive. The sun was beginning to rise when the surgeon finally appeared in the waiting room, his face marked by the weariness of hours of intense work. Anna stood up immediately, her legs trembling. The doctor approached her, and the universe seemed to freeze as she awaited his words. The morning light streamed in through the hospital windows, bathing everything in a golden hue of hope. A new day was being born, and with it everyone's fate would be decided. Catherine was trapped, her crimes finally exposed. Henry was fighting for his life in the ICU, his sacrifice a testament that goodness still existed in the world. And Anna, the little warrior who had survived so much, awaited to find out if she would have a new chance at having a family. The hospital corridors continued their constant movement, indifferent to the drama unfolding within its walls. Anna remained seated, her hands clutching the worn stuffed bear, her only connection to the life she had before Catherine. Now, all she could do was wait and pray, as her mother had taught her so long ago. The clock on the wall marked each second with cruel precision, while Anna kept her eyes fixed on the ICU doors. Somewhere beyond those doors, Henry was fighting for his life. Yet another victim of Catherine's evil, another hero who had tried to protect her. "Please," she whispered into the hospital silence, "don't leave me alone again." The hours dragged on in the hospital waiting room as Anna remained huddled in one of the uncomfortable chairs. Her small body was exhausted, but fear wouldn't let her sleep. Every time the surgical center doors opened, she straightened up hopefully for news, only to see other doctors, other families, other stories that weren't hers. "Please, God," she whispered repeatedly, as her mother had taught her. "Don't let him die, too." The clock on the wall seemed to move in slow motion, each minute an eternity of anguish. 4 hours had passed since Henry went into surgery, and still no news. Anna watched the hands move, recalling how he had thrown himself in front of her, how his blood had stained the Persian rug, how his eyes had found hers one last time before closing. "He can't die," she thought, clutching her stuffed bear. "Not after everything he did to save me." An occasional nurse would pass by and offer water or a snack, but Anna could barely swallow. Her stomach was in knots, churning with every new sound coming from the direction of the surgical center. The harsh fluorescent hospital lighting made her eyes burn, but she refused to close them, fearing missing any news about Henry. "If only I could go back in time," she murmured to herself. "I would have run faster, screamed louder, done something different." Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Several doctors rushed into the surgical center, their urgent voices echoing off the white walls. Anna felt her heart stop as she caught fragments of their hurried conversations. Pressure dropping. More blood. Code blue. Her tiny hands gripped the bear so tightly her knuckles turned white. The minutes that followed were the longest of her life. Nurses rushed in and out carrying blood bags and equipment. The sound of a defibrillator charging made it to her ears, causing her to tremble from head to toe. Tears began streaming down her face as she rocked back and forth in the chair. "I can't lose anyone else," she sobbed softly. "Please don't take him too." An entire hour passed in this state of terror before the flurry of activity began to die down. The doctors who had rushed in no longer looked quite so frantic as they exited. A nurse smiled discreetly in her direction, and Anna felt a small flame of hope ignite in her chest. Could he? Her mind barely dared complete the thought. At last, after what seemed an eternity, the head surgeon came out to speak with her. His face was weary, but a small smile played at his lips. "It was difficult," he said, taking a seat beside Anna. "He lost a lot of blood and his heart stopped once on the table, but we managed to stabilize him. Henry is a fighter." The doctor's words caused Anna to let out a sob of relief so deep that her tiny body shook all over. "He's going to live?" she asked, her voice thick with tears. The doctor nodded gently. "Yes, little one. He'll need to be hospitalized for a while, but he'll make a full recovery." The news seemed to drain whatever energy Anna had left. For the first time in many hours, she allowed her eyes to close, her tears to flow freely. "Thank you, Mama," she thought. "Thank you for hearing my prayers this time." The doctor explained that Henry would be transferred to the ICU, where he would remain under observation for the next few days. Anna could see him, but only for a few minutes, and he likely wouldn't wake up anytime soon due to the anesthesia. "He risked his life to save me," she told the doctor, her voice small but steady. "I need to be there when he wakes up." In the ICU, Henry looked smaller and more fragile, hooked up to various machines monitoring his vital signs. His skin was pale, but his chest rose and fell in a steady, peaceful rhythm. Anna approached the bed cautiously, as if fearing any sudden movement might injure him further. Carefully, she took Henry's hand, the same hand that had held hers just hours earlier when he had promised to protect her. It was warm, alive, and that was all that mattered. "Thank you for not leaving me," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." The doctors had said the recovery would be long. Henry would need physical therapy, strong medications, and a lot of rest. But for Anna, none of that mattered. For the first time since her mother had died, since Catherine had entered her life, since her father had left her, she felt something different growing in her chest. Hope. The sun was starting to set, casting golden rays through the ICU windows. Anna remained by Henry's bedside, her eyes heavy with fatigue but her heart lighter. Somewhere in the city, Catherine was behind bars, her crimes finally exposed. And here, in this hospital room, a new chapter of her life was about to begin. 3 days had passed since the surgery, and Anna hadn't left the hospital once. Her small, tired eyes remained fixed on Henry, watching every movement, every breath. The quiet room was broken only by the sound of monitors and her soft voice when she spoke to him. "Please wake up. I need to thank you for saving my life." The morning sun came in through the window when Anna felt a slight movement in Henry's fingers. Her heart raced as she saw his eyelids trembling, struggling to open after days of darkness. Tears began to stream down her face as she gently squeezed his hand. "I'm here, you made it. You survived." Henry blinked several times, his eyes trying to adjust to the light. When he finally managed to focus, he saw Anna's anxious face beside him. His voice came out hoarse and weak. "You didn't leave?" A shy smile appeared on the girl's face as she adjusted Henry's blanket. The last days of constant vigil had been worth it just to see him wake up. Wiping away the tears with the back of her hand, she shook her head. "I couldn't leave you alone, not after everything you did for me." Henry's eyes filled with tears upon hearing those words. With effort, he managed to raise his hand to touch Anna's face. "How are you, Catherine? She didn't hurt you." The gentle touch made more tears stream down the girl's face. It was strange how such a simple gesture could carry so much affection, so much protection. Anna held his hand against her face. "I'm okay. You saved me. Nobody had done something so great for me." The sunlight now bathed the entire room, creating an almost magical moment between the two. Henry watched Anna's small, tear-stained face, seeing in it all the strength and courage she carried. "You deserve to be protected, little one. You deserve to be loved." Anna's heart seemed to grow within her chest upon hearing those words. Years of abandonment and loneliness began to melt under the warmth of that unexpected affection. With a choked voice, she whispered, "Why did you believe me that day in the church? Everyone thought I was crazy." Henry closed his eyes for a moment, remembering that day. When he opened them again, they were filled with a quiet certainty. "I saw truth in your eyes, Anna. I saw a child desperately trying to save someone. I couldn't ignore that." His words made Anna remember all the times she had tried to alert people about Catherine, all the times she had been ignored or called a liar. Her voice came out trembling. "I was so afraid you wouldn't survive either. Like my dad." A gentle silence fell over the room as Henry absorbed the weight of that confession. Carefully, he shifted in the bed to look directly into her eyes. "I promise I won't leave you alone, Anna. Never again." The girl's heart skipped a beat upon hearing that promise. Her small hands gripped Henry's tighter. You're serious? Henry smiled, ignoring the pain the movement caused. There was something in his eyes, a calm and unwavering certainty. Anna, how would you feel about having a family again? Tears now flowed freely down the girl's face, but for the first time in a long time, they were tears of happiness. Her whole body trembled with the emotion of that moment. You want to be my second dad? Henry's smile widened despite the pain. His own tears now mingled with hers. Only if you want to be my daughter. The universe seemed to stop at that moment as Anna processed those words. Years of loneliness, fear, and abandonment began to dissolve in the light of this new possibility. I want to so much. Night fell over the hospital, but Anna was no longer afraid of the dark. The extra bed the nurses had brought was beside Henry's, and she could hear his calm breathing. Can I really sleep here every night until you get better? Henry turned his head on the pillow to look at her, ignoring the discomfort of the movement. Seeing Anna there, safe and protected, made all the pain worth it. Of course you can. In fact, I sleep better knowing you're nearby. The comfortable silence was broken by the sound of the dinner cart in the hallway. Anna got up quickly to help Henry with the tray. The nurses taught me how to adjust your bed so you can eat better. A proud smile lit up Henry's tired face as he watched the girl's careful movements. You'd make a great nurse when you grow up. Have you ever thought about what you want to be? Anna paused for a moment, the soup spoon suspended in the air. No one had ever asked about her dreams before. Actually, I've always wanted to be a teacher like my mum was. Henry's eyes filled with tears as he saw the glimmer of hope on her face. Carefully, he took the spoon from her hand. You know, when I get out of here, we can look for a good school for you to go back to. A small hiccup escaped Anna's lips. She hadn't attended a school since Catherine had abandoned her on the streets. Do you think they'll accept me? I've been out for so long. Henry reached out to wipe away a tear rolling down her cheek. We'll find the perfect school, and I'll be by your side every step of the way, I promise. The rest of the night passed peacefully, with Anna recounting stories from the books the nurses had loaned her. It was as if the hospital room had transformed into a small sanctuary just for them. Tomorrow I can bring more books from the hospital library, she said with a yawn. Henry watched tenderly as she fought against sleep. It's getting late, little one. Time for bed, we have a big day ahead tomorrow. Anna settled into the extra bed, turning to be able to see Henry's face. Promise you'll be here when I wake up. The question broke Henry's heart. How many times must she have woken up alone and afraid during those months on the streets? I promise, my little one. We're a family now, remember? The sound of the heart monitors was like a gentle lullaby as Anna closed her eyes. Good night, Dad. Henry felt his heart swell with love at that simple, meaningful word. His voice was thick with emotion. Good night, my daughter. Sleep well. In the gentle darkness of the hospital room, father and daughter fell asleep, their hearts beating in a harmonious rhythm of hope and love. The beginning of a new family, born not of blood, but of the purest, truest love. Coming home after 3 weeks in the hospital had a different flavor now. Anna was no longer just a rescued girl, she was officially Henry's daughter. As she gently supported her father out of the car, her heart overflowed with joy at seeing the house she already knew. But that was now truly her home. It feels so different coming in here, knowing I'll never have to leave again. Henry smiled as he watched Anna run to open the curtains and let the sunlight in, just as she had done every day before visiting him at the hospital. The room she had already been occupying now had papers scattered with drawings of how she wanted to decorate it. So when do we start turning these designs of yours into reality? The following days were about adjusting to the new routine. Anna's school life resumed, now with Henry signing parent meetings as her legal guardian. The teachers were amazed by her determination to make up for lost time, and her grades improved every week. One evening, hunched over her books at the kitchen table, she looked up at Henry. Did you know I dream of becoming a teacher now? I want to help other kids the way you helped me. The nightmares still came occasionally, but they were different now. When Anna woke up scared in the middle of the night, she no longer found the cold silence of the streets, but Henry's secure embrace. Tell me that story again about when you were little. It helps me forget the bad dreams. The most remarkable transformation was her smile. No longer timid or scared, but bright and genuine. During a Sunday breakfast while helping Henry make pancakes, she let out such a pure laugh that it filled the kitchen with joy. I never thought I could be this happy again. The garden became her favorite place to study. Henry had set up a table under the big tree, where Anna would spend hours with her books. On one particularly beautiful afternoon, she looked up from her homework. "Sometimes I think my mum guided you to me that day at the church." Regular visits to the therapist helped Anna process her past. Henry always waited for her in the waiting room, and after each session, they had a tradition of getting ice cream together. During one of those moments, she held his hand tightly. "Thank you for giving me time to heal." The first time Anna called Henry Dad without hesitation was during a parent meeting at school. The teacher was praising her progress when she proudly pointed at him. "My dad helps me with my homework every day." Henry's smile lit up the entire room. Nights at home now had a different meaning. After dinner, Anna and Henry developed the habit of sitting on the porch watching the stars. "It's so nice to have someone to share this sky with," she said, snuggled against her father. Henry smiled, holding his daughter tenderly. The wound still ached a little, but his heart was lighter than ever. "You know, little one," he replied softly, "sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as difficult moments." After the intense events that nearly destroyed Anna and Henry, life began to settle, and they were both able to experience the peace they had longed for. With Catherine finally behind bars, her threats and manipulations became a distant memory, but not without leaving deep scars in Anna. Now, months after Henry's surgery and Catherine's trial, Anna was starting to find a new rhythm, a routine filled with small moments of joy and discovery that filled the void left by so many losses. Henry, still physically recovering, had become a constant and reassuring presence in Anna's life. He supported her through every challenge, from school struggles to the insecurities her past had left in her mind and heart. Anna started attending school regularly, and each day she showed more determination to learn and improve herself. Whenever she felt insecure or remembered the times when no one believed in her, Henry was there to remind her of her strength and courage. He encouraged her with kind words and caring actions, making Anna feel for the first time what it truly meant to be loved and protected. At school, Anna found friends, something she had never had the chance to experience before. Her classmates, curious and kind, were like a breath of hope and normality, helping her realize that the world was bigger and safer than she had thought. Although there were still nights when nightmares returned, with painful memories of Catherine and her life on the streets, now Anna would wake up and know that Henry was a few steps away, always ready to comfort her and tell her she was safe. During the afternoons, Henry and Anna spent hours together in the house's garden. He set up an area for outdoor studies and readings, where she liked to review her lessons and dream about the future. On one of those days, with the clear sky and air perfumed by the surrounding flowers, Anna confessed to Henry that she wanted, in the future, to work with children, perhaps as a teacher, to help others find the right path, just as he had helped her. He smiled proudly, feeling that every effort to save and protect her had been worth it. Henry's support was not limited to home. He accompanied her to regular sessions with a therapist who helped her process the past and deal with the emotional scars she still carried. With each session, Anna felt stronger and more confident, realizing that her pain did not define her, but rather shaped her into a more resilient person. The therapist encouraged Henry to continue expressing his support and care, something he did naturally, with a dedication that profoundly transformed Anna. Over time, Anna began to feel more and more at ease in her new home. Henry encouraged her to redecorate her room, turning it into a cozy and lively space, with colors that made her smile and objects that symbolized her new phase. For Anna, seeing her room become a real home was a small daily victory, reminding her that she had escaped darkness and abandonment and now had a bright future ahead of her. Every night they shared moments of complicity, laughing at silly things, reading stories, or simply watching the stars on the porch. Henry knew that Anna would still face emotional challenges, but he was determined to stay by her side, showing her that despite everything she had been through, love and security were possible. Over the months, Anna began to dream of a real future, something that had once seemed so distant and unlikely. She started making plans, writing down her ideas and dreams in a notebook that Henry had given her, recording every small goal she wanted to achieve. Through love and patience, Henry had restored Anna's ability to dream, to believe in people's kindness and the possibility of a full and happy life. The day of Anna's elementary school graduation was emotional. As Henry saw his little winner receive her certificate, his heart swelled with pride. Anna smiled, a smile that spoke of overcoming, gratitude, and hope, and Henry knew this was just the beginning of a beautiful and meaningful story for both of them. Now Anna was ready to build her future, knowing that she would have Henry's unconditional love by her side, a father who was not biological, but one of the heart. At the end of her journey of overcoming, Anna discovered that despite everything, she was still capable of finding peace and a new version of family. In the home she now shared with Henry, she felt the warmth of a family for the first time, unconditional support, and the security of a place where she could be herself without fear. The past, although painful and marked by trials, was no longer a constant shadow, but a distant memory that gradually lost its weight. Henry, by her side, was not only the man who had saved her, but the father she had always needed and deserved. He accompanied her in moments of joy and overcoming, helping her to build new memories and look to the future with courage and hope. Anna, now a girl full of dreams and a desire to learn, knew that she would never be alone again. United by a bond of love stronger than any trial, Anna and Henry walked into the future with firm steps, confident that together they could overcome any challenge and create a story full of meaning and new possibilities. If you like this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising narrative that is about to appear on your screen. We are immensely grateful to have you here with us. Now, you can click on the links that are appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, filled with valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.